Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Paddocks. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a legendary driver, Michael Schumacher. From his early days in F1 to his break after retiring, I'm really excited for this one. On the episode, we have Melissa, Edo, and Rachel, with me, Chelsea, behind the scenes. And to start us off, I'm going to pass it to Edo.
Michael Schumacher, the legendary German F1 driver that actually got me into the sport, was born on January 3rd, 1969, in Hurt-Helmutheim, West Germany. He grew up in a family with a passion for motorsports, which played a significant role in shaping his early life. Schumacher's father, Rolf, ran a small go-karting track, and it was here that a young Michael first developed an interest in racing. He and his younger brother, Ralf Schumacher, quickly took to go-karting, and their father, of course, supported their early forays into motorsport. Michael Schumacher's talent for racing became evident at an early age. He won his first karting championship at the tender age of 6. His success in karting led to him progressing to other racing categories, and he continued to excel wherever he went. By the age of 21, he had already won several German and European karting championships. In the late 80s, Schumacher transitioned to single-seater racing, working his way up the ranks in various Formula Ford and Formula 3 series. He attracted the attention of talent scouts and racing teams with his impressive performances. His big break came in 1991 when he signed with the Mercedes Junior Racing Team and joined the World Sports Car Championship.
So picture yourself at the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix, and you get to see the debut of Michael Schumacher in Formula One, driving for the Irish Jordan Forward team. However, his debut was nothing but conventional. Michael was actually driving for the team as a replacement in car number 32 for the driver Bernard Gachot. This driver was actually serving a 2-month prison sentence for an altercation with the London driver, but that's a different conversation for a way different day. And Mercedes actually paid the team $150,000 towards his debut. And all of this just happened 2 weeks before the Grand Prix itself. And then just a week before the actual race, Michael was already impressing Jordan's designer, Gary Anderson, and team manager, Trevor Foster, during a testing session at Silverstone. However, it did take some convincing from Michael's manager, Weber, to assure the team that Michael knew the circuit well enough, even though he had only seen the track as a fan. Michael did learn the track layout on his own by cycling around the track with a bike he actually brought himself, which I thought that was really wholesome to know. Something about that is just kind of like, that's really cute. And he actually ended up qualifying in 7th for the race, of course, impressing many fans amongst the paddock. And he even outqualified his teammate, Andrea de Cestares. This impressed many, including motorsport journalist Joe Sawyer, sorry for mispronunciation, who reported after the qualifying session, quote, clumps of German journalists were talking about the best talent since Stefan Bellof, end quote. Unfortunately for Michael, though, he had to retire from the race in the first lap due to some clutch problems.
Following his debut with Jordan at the Belgian Grand Prix, Schumacher was approached and subsequently contracted by Benetton Ford for the remainder of the 1991 season. This was despite the agreement that had been made between his management team at Mercedes and Jordan. And Jordan did try to get an injunction from the British courts to prevent him from driving for Benetton. However, the court did not grant this as a final contract had not been signed. So Schumacher went on to finish the 1991 season with 4 points out of 6 races, with his best finish being 5th at the Italian Grand Prix. In 1992 was Schumacher's first full season in F1, and despite the season being dominated by Williams, he got his first podium, finishing 3rd at the Mexican Grand Prix, and then his first victory at the Belgian Grand Prix, which is really great because that was where his debut was the year prior. Schumacher went on to finish 3rd in the driver's standings that season with 53 points, just 3 points behind 2nd place, Ricardo Patrese, and 3 points ahead of 4th, Ayrton Senna. 1993 saw the continued dominance of Williams and a little bit of bad luck for Schumacher as he retired in 7 out of the 16 races that season. The other 9 races, however, saw him take the podium, including the Portuguese Grand Prix, which he won, beating Alain Prost. He finished the season 4th in the Drivers' Championship with 52 points. 1994, he won the first 4 races of the season and was leading in the Spanish Grand Prix before a gearbox failure left him stuck in 5th gear for most of the race. Even so, he managed to make 2 pit stops without stalling and then finished the race in 2nd place, which is insane. He then went on to win the following 2 races, and at the British Grand Prix, he was penalized for overtaking Damon Hill during the formation lap. He and Benetton ignored the penalty and the subsequent black flag, which indicates that the driver must immediately return to the pits. And for this, he was disqualified and given a 2-race ban. He was then disqualified again after winning the Belgian Grand Prix when his car was found to have illegal wear on its skid block. Benetton protested that the skid block was damaged when Schumacher spun over a curb, but the FIA rejected their appeal due to the pattern of wear and the damage that was visible on the block. Those 2 incidents helped Damon Hill close the points gap in the driver's standings so that by the time the final race in Australia came around, Schumacher was ahead by just a single point. And while leading the race on lap 36 out of 81, Schumacher hit the guardrail on the outside of the track, and as he returned to the track, Damon Hill made an attempt to pass, and this ended up causing a collision on the corner, and both drivers had to retire. The stewards deemed it a racing accident and took no further action against either driver. Michael Schumacher won his first Drivers' Championship by a single point, and he was the first German to win a World Drivers' Championship. During the post-race press conference, Schumacher dedicated his title to Ayrton Senna, who had passed after a crash in the San Marino Grand Prix earlier that year. And in 1995, Schumacher defended his title with Benetton. Despite several collisions with Damon Hill over the season, he still won 9 out of the 17 races and had 11 podium finishes. The only time he qualified worse than 4th was at the Belgian Grand Prix, where he qualified 16th. And even so, he still went on to win the race. He became the youngest 2-time world champion in Formula One, a title now held by Sebastian Vettel, and he and teammate Johnny Herbert took Benetton to its first Constructors' Championship, breaking the dominance of McLaren and Williams.
In 1996, Schumacher made a very high-profile move from Benetton to Ferrari, which was struggling to secure a world championship for over 15 years. His signing was a pivotal moment for the team as they saw him to be the talent to end all their championship woes. Hence, it is no wonder that Schumacher's first season with the Prancing Horse was challenging. The car was not competitive enough to challenge for a championship. However, Schumacher's work ethic and determination were evident, and he managed to win 3 races that season, a sign of what was to come. And what a beginning of a transformation it was within the team. He worked closely with then team principal Jean Todt and technical director Ross Brawn of Brawn GP, if anyone's wondering, which has a documentary coming out later this week, actually. And they managed to build a cohesive and successful team. They brought in key personnel and developed a culture of excellence. Ferrari assembled a group of talented engineers and mechanics who were dedicated to achieving success. This included the introductions of key figures such as chief designer Rory Bryn and engine guru Paolo Martinelli. The team became known as the Dream Team. And that Dream Team challenged for the World Championship from 1997 onwards. Although they narrowly missed out on several occasions, they continued to improve the car's performance, with the dream finally coming true in 2000, when Schumacher and Ferrari achieved their dream. Schumacher secured his first World Drivers' Championship with the team, ending Ferrari's 21-year championship drought. God, that championship drought was of drinking age. This was followed by 4 consecutive titles from 2000 to 2004, which Rachel would talk about more.
As Edo mentioned, Schumacher continued to dominate with Ferrari, winning 9 out of the 17 races in the 2001 season. At the Canadian GP, he finished second to his brother Ralph, and this was the first ever 1-2 finish by brothers in Formula One history. At the Belgian GP, he scored his 52nd win, breaking the record for most career wins, which had previously been held by Alain Prost. He secured the World Championship with 123 points and 4 races left in the season. 2002 saw a little bit of controversy during the start of the season at the Austrian GP. Schumacher's teammate Rubens Barrichello had been leading the race, but under team orders slowed and allowed Schumacher to pass in the last few meters of the race and get the win. And while it wasn't against any regulations, fans were pretty angry with this, and many arguing that Schumacher didn't need to be given any race wins, especially that early on in the season. And during the podium ceremony, Schumacher actually pushed Rubens onto the top step and took the second place step for himself. This was considered a disturbance by the FIA, and Ferrari ended up receiving a $1 million fine. Ferrari still won 15 out of the 17 races, 11 of which were won by Schumacher and 9 of which saw Ferrari won 2. His 11 race wins in one season broke the record which he had shared with Nigel Mansell of race wins in one season and finishing on the podium at every race. He secured his 5th world title with 144 points and 6 races left in the season, and this is still the earliest point in the season for a driver to be crowned world champion. Now, prior to the 2003 season, the FIA introduced new regulations and point system to make the championship more open. And even so, after what was a closely contested battle, Schumacher broke Juan Manuel Fangio's record of 5 world championships by securing his 6th. Schumacher was run off track in the first race and then was involved in collisions in the following 2 races. This ended up putting him 16 points behind Kimi Räikkönen. He won the next 3 races, which put him within 2 points of Kimi Räikkönen. And the midseason was dominated by Williams, but after the Hungarian GP, Schumacher led Montoya and Räikkönen by just 1 and 2 points respectively. With Montoya being penalized at the US GP, only Schumacher and Räikkönen were really left in contention for the World Championship. He needed 1 point to secure the world title, while Räikkönen needed to win the race. Schumacher ended up coming in 8th place in the last race, taking 1 point and securing his 6th world title, 2 points ahead of Räikkönen. In 2004, Schumacher achieved an unprecedented feat by winning 12 out of the initial 13 races in the season. The only setback occurring in Monaco when a collision with Montoya during a safety car period prevented him from finishing. Schumacher secured his 7th driver's title at the Belgian Grand Prix, concluding the season with a remarkable 148 points. This is based on the old pre-2014 system, where the top 10 got points in a descending order. He outpaced the runner-up Barrichello by 34 points and set a new record by winning 13 out of 18 races, surpassing his previous best of 11 victories in the 2002 season. 2005 saw some rule changes requiring tires to last the entire race, favoring teams using Michelins over those like Ferrari relying on Bridgestone. These changes aimed to challenge Ferrari's dominance and enhance the series' competitiveness. Schumacher's notable moment was a close battle with Fernando Alonso in San Marino, starting 13th and finishing just 0.2 seconds behind. Midway through the season, Schumacher acknowledged his dwindling chances, stating his struggle was like fighting with a blunted weapon. His sole win in 2005 occurred at the United States Grand Prix amid safety concerns with Michelin tires, leading to several teams withdrawing. Schumacher retired in 6 out of 19 races, finishing the season in 3rd place with 62 points, less than half of world champion Alonso's total. 2006, Schumacher concluded his career with Ferrari, and after a slow start, he won 2 races, breaking Ayrton Senna's pole position record at San Marino, which is poetic as it's the race where Senna lost his life 12 years prior. Despite being penalized at the Monaco Grand Prix and starting from the back, he climbed to 5th, and mid-season he trailed Alonso by 25 points, but won 3 consecutive races, eventually leading the championship. Ferrari announced Schumacher's retirement after his victory in Italy, evoking a very affectionate response from fans and the press. And in his final race at Interlagos, Schumacher overtook Räikkönen for 4th place. An engine failure cost him the Japanese Grand Prix win, and a puncture at the Brazilian Grand Prix dropped him to 19th. But he heroically recovered to secure earning praise for a breathtaking drive that encapsulated his career.
So, into the 2007 season, Michael acted as Ferrari's team advisor and Jean Todt's, quote, super assistant. Now, I don't know why this gives me Dwight's assistant to the regional manager role from The Office vibes. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about right now. No offense to anyone. The title just gives me that. But anyways, Michael actually also had a role at the Jerez or Jerez circuit with Ferrari's development program, where there he had focused more on testing electronics and tires for the following 2008 season. And into the 2008 season, Michael took part in competing in the motorcycle racing in the IDM Superbike Series and at a Superbike Cup race at the Pannonia Ring. Sorry again for any mispronunciations. Michael finished third out of 27 drivers behind racers Martin Bauer and Andreas Miklau. Now, into the 2009 season at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Felipe Massa was injured due to being struck by a suspension spring during quali session. And apparently it was so bad that he couldn't go back into racing for a little bit. And it was announced by Ferrari that Michael would be taking the place of Massa for the Hungarian Grand Prix itself and the following races afterwards until Massa was fit to drive again. So ouch on that injury. And Michael tested a modified Ferrari F2007 to get himself ready since he wasn't able to test the actual 2009 car due to some testing restrictions. And Ferrari had filed an appeal for special permission for Michael to test in the spec car, but other teams like Red Bull, Toro Rosso, and Williams were against the appeal. Unfortunately for Michael, he was not able to make his comeback into F1 just yet due to a neck injury he had from a previous motorcycle accident earlier this year. And Massa's driver's seat was replaced with Luca Badoer and then Giancarlo Fisichella.
However, in December 2009, it was finally announced that Schumacher would make his return to the sport for the 2010 season, with Mercedes GP alongside Nico Rosberg. This all-German lineup also marked Mercedes' return as a constructor in Formula One, who had been absent since 1955. If you want to learn more about the Silver Arrows, check out the Mercedes episode that was posted just before this one. Schumacher's decision to come out of retirement was motivated by his desire to drive for Mercedes and work with team principal Ross Brawn. He signed a 3-year contract worth $25 million. Schumacher's 2010 season started out with a 6th-place finish at Bahrain. He struggled in the early races, honestly, and faced criticism and doubts about his performance. But some former drivers like Damon Hill believed in his abilities. The Mercedes car's understeer and the difference in driving styles with his teammate Nico were identified as factors contributing to Schumacher's difficulties. Throughout the season, Schumacher's performance improved. He finished 4th at the Spanish GP and 6th at Monaco, though a grid penalty dropped him to 12th. He achieved his best result with a 4th-place finish in Turkey. However, he had a low point at the European Grand Prix, finishing 15th, the lowest of his career. Schumacher faced controversy when he was penalized for dangerous driving in a battle with former teammate Rubens Barrichello in Hungary. He recovered to finish 7th at the Belgian GP after starting 21st due to his grid penalty. The season ended with a major accident in Abu Dhabi, leaving Schumacher in 9th place with 72 points and failing to secure a win, a pole position, podium, or fastest lap even for the first time since 1991. In 2011, Schumacher secured points in various races, with highlights including a 4th-place finish in the Canadian GP and leading laps in Japan, becoming the oldest driver to do so in years. He ended the season in 8th place in the Drivers' Championship. For 2012, he continued with Mercedes. retiring from the Australian GP but earning a point in Malaysia. A pit stop error in China caused his retirement. He incurred penalties in Monaco but retired from that race too. Schumacher had his only podium finish since his return at the European GP, setting a new record as the oldest driver to achieve such a podium since 1970. Schumacher's uncertainty about his future led to his replacement by Lewis Hamilton for the 2013 season at Mercedes. He announced his second retirement in October, finishing the season with a 7th place finish at the Brazilian GP and placing 13th overall in the Drivers' Championship. Now that we've talked about his career, let's talk a bit about his life outside of F1. And I first want to talk about his helmets. And while he wasn't known to have unique helmet designs, he was still known for his helmets because he collaborated with Schumacher, a helmet manufacturer, to develop the first lightweight carbon fiber reinforced polyamor helmet. In 2004, a prototype of said helmet demonstrated its durability by surviving a tank driving over it. The helmet featured a design with the colors of the German flag and sponsor decals, including a blue circle with a white asteroids on top. Over time, Schumacher made color modifications such as changing the upper blue color to red to differentiate from his teammate, and after that, red truly became his color to the point where he wore red helmets even at Mercedes after his return, even though they were known as silver arrows when red is decidedly Ferrari. He did a few special helmets too, including an all-red helmet at the 2006 Brazilian GP with the names of his 91 Grand Prix victories and a gold leaf helmet for his 20th anniversary in F1 in 2011. And finally, during his 300th GP appearance in 2012, Schumacher wore a platinum leafed helmet with a message commemorating that achievement.
Additionally, Michael Schumacher was very philanthropic. He once told F1 magazine, "It's great if you can use your fame and the power your fame gives you to draw attention to things that really matter." In 1997, he supported a hospital for child victims of the siege in Sarajevo. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which specializes in amputees, providing them with artificial limbs as well as psychological support. Sarajevo went on to grant him honorary citizenship and renamed a major city street after him. And in Lima, Peru, he funded the Palace for the Poor, which is a center for helping homeless children obtain an education, clothing, food, medical attention, and shelter. He also paid for the construction of a school for children and area improvement in Dakar, Senegal. During the 2002 and 2003 European flood disasters, he donated 1 million and 500,000 euros, respectively. And in 2004, he donated $10 million for aid after the Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. This was more than the amount of any other sports person, most sports leagues, many worldwide corporations, and some countries. Between 2002 and 2006, he also donated at least 50 million to various charities. And in 2008, he donated between 5 and 10 million to the Clinton Foundation. And while his participation in the FIA European Road Safety Campaign was initially part of his punishment for his collision at the 1997 European Grand Prix, he continued to support other campaigns after. One being the Make Roads Safe campaign, which is led by the FIA Foundation, and it calls on G8 countries and the UN to recognize global road deaths as major health issues. He was also the figurehead for a Bacardi campaign to raise awareness about responsible drinking. He was also a special ambassador for UNESCO and has donated 1.5 million euros to the organization. And in 2002, in an interview with UNESCO, he explained his dedication to funding projects. He said, quote, "I really want to help the ones that people don't know about. Nowadays, certain projects attract lots of donors, and then there are others you never hear about. Those are the ones I'm interested in." And in addition to his 7 world titles and 91 race wins, Michael Schumacher has quite a few other awards and honors. Around 54, give or take. I could have missed a few. Most notably, he was awarded the ONS Cup by the German Motorsport Federation 4 times, named European Sportsperson of the Year 4 times by the International Press Association and 3 times by the Polish Press Agency. He was awarded Germany's highest sporting accolade, not to be confused with the ONS Cup, which is motorsport only, and I'm really sorry if I butcher this, Silbernes Lorbeerblatt, which means silver laurel leaf in English. And he earned that in 1997 for his sports achievements and his commitment to road safety. In 2004, he was named Germany's greatest sportsperson of the 20th century. 2006, ahead of his final race with Ferrari at Interlagos, he was presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which was presented by the football player Pelé. He was also awarded the FIA Gold Medal for Motorsport, honoring his racing career and his efforts to improve road safety and the sport itself. And in 2007, turns 9 and 10 at the Nürburgring were renamed the Schumacher S, and in 2014, turn 1 of the Bahrain International Circuit was renamed in his honor. Most recently, in 2017, he was inducted into the FIA Hall of Fame, as well as Germany's Sports Hall of Fame. And in 2020, Jean Todt, former Ferrari team principal, honored Schumacher with the FIA President Award in recognition of his 7 world championships and the, quote, inspiration his sporting and personal commitments have brought to the world. And just last year, in 2022, he received the state prize of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is the highest honor of his home state in Germany.
Almost 10 years ago, on December 29, 2013, Michael was skiing with his then 14-year-old son, Mick, down the French Alps. And during their descent down the mountains, they crossed an unsecure off-piste area between 2 specific piste points. I might be using the incorrect terminology, but I also don't want to butcher any names, where Michael unfortunately fell and hit his head on a rock. Now, despite him wearing a ski helmet, Michael endured a serious head injury and was airlifted to Grenoble Hospital. There, he had to undergo 2 surgical procedures, and physicians even stated that he most likely would have passed away had he not been wearing a helmet. So, wear your helmet, kids. Ultimately, Michael was put into a medically induced coma because of his traumatic brain injury. But by March 2014, he was starting to show positive signs and was withdrawn from his coma by early April. Now, by June, he was transferred to a rehab facility in Switzerland, and by September, Michael returned home to continue his outpatient rehabilitation. Despite reports of Michael's condition, in May 2015, his lawyer came out and stated that Michael's condition was improving, quote, considering the severeness of the injury he had, end quote. And 4 years later, in July 2019, as Rachel had mentioned, former Ferrari manager Jean Todt reported that Michael was making, quote, good progress, but also, quote, struggles to communicate, end quote. Jean also mentioned that Michael was able to watch F1 races in the comfort of his own home. So love knowing that, he was still able to enjoy what he did. And in that same year, Le Parisien reported that Michael was undergoing some surgery for an anti-inflammatory stem cell perfusion. There wasn't really much information I could find about that, so my apologies. And to this day, the Schumacher family maintains their privacy on Michael's condition and has not been seen in public since the accident. Unfortunately, a different magazine, the Acutele, again, sorry for any butchering of mispronunciation, they went as far as publishing the, quote, first interview with Michael with quotes about his condition. However, it was quickly exposed that the responses were all AI, or if I remember, it was like Chat GP generated. And the Schumacher family stated that they would take legal action against the magazine, which led to the editor losing their job. Which, honestly, I don't blame them. There's a reason why they kept that privacy. And we've seen what happened recently with another big athlete in that accident. And I mean, it's private information and it should be kept like that. End of story.
I gotta say, after doing all of this research and looking into everything and listening to y'all, that man's career is insane. I mean, what he was able to achieve from 1991 to 1993 alone was incredible. Just I I know I watched a couple of his like early 2000s races with my dad, but I was born in 1997. I don't remember watching the races. I don't remember everything, and I really wish I could. And I also am definitely going to go back and watch some of those races because it's incredible. And I feel like being there and seeing all of that happen live, I would kill for that.
Yeah, and I mean, remember, 1991 was his first season. He was a rookie. And Rachel stating that even from 1991 to 1993 only, he was already so impressive. Honestly, I don't know how he did it, but I feel like because he was a mix between a racing driver and a mechanic, was one of the reasons why he was so successful, because he knew the car inside and out and would make suggestions to his engineers and like tell them exactly what he wanted. Like at Ferrari, that's how basically they became as good as they were. Of course, with others involved too, but without Michael's feedback, I don't think they would have done it.
They should go back to that, having some of the drivers like take some kind of like mechanic course for a little bit just so they can know how a car functions, and the same as Michael, like, make suggestions, like more educated suggestions to their cars to make improvements. I think that would be useful. But learning about him was a lot of fun. Like I didn't know all about like his philanthropy and everything. So it's kind of nice knowing that he always looked out for the underdog or like the little guys. I actually like really appreciate that because like you said, like a lot of times people focus on the bigger issues, but at the same time, there's like smaller things going on that need just as much attention. So I really like that.
Yeah, I was at Coda a few weeks ago, and I went to the Williams like Alex Albon meet and greet, and there was this little boy who asked like, for a young Carter, like what would you say is really important? And Alex's answer was learn the engineering side, learn the mechanics, because that's really important to understand how the car works. And I mean, Michael's the perfect example of that. I think knowing how everything works and being able to be hands-on is so important and can really set you apart from literally everybody else. I also will say one of my favorite things is all of his like victories at the Belgian Grand Prix, which he said became like his favorite track, but that being his debut track and where he got his first victory, and just it's just like you can't write that. It's just incredible. It's poetic, and I no words.
I often think about if this was a perfect world and what happened didn't happen, where he would be within the F1 realm, especially with Mick. This is something that Chris and I actually like touch upon like probably like a few times like every season, because it's something that always just sticks in my mind. Because like, you know, there's Seb, of course, and like Seb's a very great influence on Mick, but of course there's nothing like your dad, a legend beyond the grid, being there. Like, of course he would probably provide advice. I can imagine, the influence he would have and everything. But I'm thinking more so like, I feel like it would probably really be beneficial for Mick, and it kind of hurts that he's not getting that, because he can be giving him like little advice, little pointers, or just being like, a dad cheering for his son. So it's like little things I think about that makes me sad at the same time.
Totally agree. And I can't remember off the top of my head who said it, but someone came out and said that if Michael were still around, Mick would have not been treated the way he was treated in his 2 seasons that he was in F1. And honestly, I would have to agree. He would probably not have driven for Haas, which, considering how that team is built, it honestly probably wasn't the right environment for Mick, everything considered. And that just goes to show how having Michael around, or having the possibility of Michael around, would have been so much better for him. Not just because of the name, because he had that either way.
I agree. And I have a lot of thoughts about the Haas and Mick situation, which we can discuss another time. But I think even just the fact of having your dad, not the name, it's not the prestige, it's just having your dad. I'm really close with my dad, and I'm close with my mom too, but like I don't know what I would do without either of my parents, without the advice they both give me, without being there for me. And like when I see like old videos of Mick when he was really young, and like Michael and just them as a family, it makes me both happy and sad. And I just, like you said, like in a perfect world, but it's so heartbreaking at the same time, because just as someone who is also really close with their dad, and we know Mick and his dad were really close, just the thought of not having that, I can't even imagine what that must feel like. And then going into that same field as your dad and just wanting to do well and wanting to, I don't think he wants to be just like his dad, but he wants to be able to uphold that legacy. And I think that is really important. And the fact that he was treated that way, like I said, I have a lot of thoughts, but I just think that I hope Mick gets another chance, because I think he deserves it. And I also think that despite everything, he still has that ability. I don't know, again, I have a lot of thoughts. I can get really worked up about this. So.
I think all PGP has a lot of thoughts on what happened at that team, and we have it out for that. I don't want to say that team, but we have it out for some stuff there. So let's not get worked up for nothing.
Even Crouton has some thoughts. Now, before we close out, I have kind of a fun fact for everyone. If you know the British show Top Gear, they had a driver called the Stig, and he always wore a helmet. You never knew his identity. And Michael Schumacher actually appeared on the show as the Stig. He ended up revealing his identity. And Jeremy Clarkson, one of the hosts of the show, ended up like kind of hinting that he's not the regular Stig. I mean, there was no way he would have time for that. But the reason he was on the show as the Stig was because Ferrari would only allow Michael to drive the very unique black Ferrari FXX that was featured on that episode. So basically Ferrari was like, yeah, you guys can feature this car, but only he's allowed to drive it. And so they kind of came up with this whole thing. And I watched that episode with my mom, and it was fantastic reveal.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Honestly, I really love that we got to talk about Michael, the legend, and I really do hope the best for him and his family. Let us know on our socials who you want to learn about next. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except on Twitter. There you can find us at Paddock Girls Pod. See you next time, where we will be talking about our favorite American boy, Logan Sargent. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.